Good morning. It's always a pleasure being back in India. It's been coming here for almost 8 years now. We went through the introduction in terms of mall regeneration and rejuvenation. It's applicable from malls from 2 years old through to 20 years old. Some of the aspects that I'll cover today in terms of regenerating your mall would be expansion, renovation, doing a mall audit, market research and how important it is, and then putting together a business plan in terms of how we undertake that. The indicators your mall is in trouble or heading towards it. We've got increasing vacancies. You've got an occupancy below 90%. You've got decreasing rentals. Sorry, because I do understand in some instances you may not understand my accent, so I put a lot of writing up there, so if you don't understand, then you can actually read it. So I do apologise for that up front. We're looking at increasing vacancies, an occupancy below 90%. We're looking at decreasing rentals, a decrease in customer traffic flow. You're looking at retailers that are unwilling to renew or come into your centre. You have an increasing competition within your primary trade area that may be new malls or existing malls that are undergoing refurbishment or repositioning. What can you do? We like to undertake an audit of your mall to identify where the issues are. We undertake market research to accurately understand your market, compiling all the information and determine your strategy to rejuvenate your mall. And then we look at to undertake the strategies for rejuvenation. Retail is an incredibly dynamic business. There are many ways to achieve desired results and there are many ways to do things right. There's no single definition, no three-step program that assures retail success. There are, however, delicate balances, subtle differences and chosen paths within an innovative process that can have a dramatic effect on your retail business. The purpose of the audit is to take a snapshot of where your business is today and what opportunities and threats there are to your mall. Typically, we go through a general analysis of the mall in terms of where it stands. We do a mall inspection and audit looking at the condition of the property, where the problems are. We look at a business plan and budget in terms of where you are financially at this point. We look at the options that you have in terms of rejuvenating that mall, and then we look to put together a rejuvenation proposal structure. What is a successful shopping mall? A successful shopping mall is one that is positioned correctly to provide maximum shopping convenience to its target customers and maximum shopping exposure of the merchandise, thus meeting and fulfilling needs of the trade area intended to be served. What you need to consider when we're reviewing your mall: the image, the centre positioning versus its competition, the locale, the existing and future developments surrounding the centre's location. It has to be consumer friendly. Consumer needs in terms of price, selection, convenience and enjoyment. It has to be retailer friendly. For every retailer location to succeed and to achieve optimum rental, it must be in a position to receive maximum exposure to shoppers' traffic. You need to understand the retailer's needs. Most importantly, you have to get a return on your investment. Any rejuvenation must improve the ROI to the owner. There's no point undertaking it if you don't actually improve your return. Core types of shopping centre. We're not looking at one single type of format, what people choices have. We have downtown shopping. We're looking at the experience, the E-factor, the lifestyle. Is it a power centre? Is it a box mall? Can we incorporate a theme park? You have to consider, research which type best serves your market and location, not only now but also in the future. We need to understand the centre's positions, the 4 Ps, the product. What is your centre? For example, ABC Mall is a regional centre anchored by a department store and 120 stores on one level. Its location, it's located on a busy main road accessed by car, buses and trains. Is it a budget centre versus luxury brands? Promotion, what is the main method you use to draw people to the centre, such as advertising, events and sponsorships? Does the mall fit your current positioning? Good management is the key to success for any mall. You'll find that it is the right combination of location, development research, design and architecture, and successful blending of retailers, both large and small, and management that creates this successful mall. You need to make sure the shopping experience exceeds the customer's expectations, with the objective of developing a brand image for the shopping centre portfolio. Aspects of exceeding the customer expectations include excellent facilities and services for customers, great lighting and air conditioning, security in the shopping centre and vicinity, and this is becoming more prevalent wherever you are in the world. A conducive environment for social interaction, It's got to have an exciting mall. It's got to have entertainment. You've got to have those exciting marketing and promotions to attract crowds and create excitement for shoppers. You've got to give them a reason to come to your mall. You've got to be dynamic and responsive to keep pace with changing needs and trends. You cannot just sit there and hope that it'll keep doing the same thing year after year. You have to keep changing with the market. It's designing a tenancy mix in tune with consumer trends and customer wants, with a view to maximising traffic, time spent and spending by shoppers from the targeted catchment region. The centre management has to operate with the perspective of the retailer and the needs of the shoppers. Management will initiate and create communications to increase foot traffic into the centre. Market research is key. Research is more than a compilation of the trade area's demographics. It's the probing, continuing inventory of a region, an in-depth exploration of the needs and desires of the people in a search for opportunity to serve them better. Design and architecture. Today, shopping centres increasingly represent an interesting, stimulating and entertaining community environment. Leasing. Leasing is the creative blending of national retailers, regional favourites, known local retailers and small independent operations. This skillful mix results in satisfied customers, successful businesses and shopping that is memorable. Marketing. Marketing programs initiated must result in a national reputation for creative and distinctive marketing. Constant updated knowledge of trends in customer loyalty and quick development of communication strategies that are successful in promoting repeat business for retailers will be the main objective of their function within the shopping centre. What do we get out of the retail audit? We need market information. We need to establish our market size in dollar terms. We need to analyse the spending by our commodity groups. We need to analyse the distance factor. How willing are people living in different segments of the market to travel to your centre and your competitive centres? We analyse the spending behaviours, the patterns of different socio-demographic groups. We look at the quantitative and qualitative attractiveness, the draw of your centre versus that of the competition. We predict our market share and the sales by the centres. It's knowing what drives your customer. Property decisions are won and lost on three core elements. Where does the mall fit in the mind of your customer? In terms of location, desirability and price. You need to understand this not only for where your mall is now, but where you want to take it in the future. We need to drive the right traffic. Is the mall's efforts focused on market segmentation to ensure the right traffic is attracted to the mall to maximise sales returns? Market segmentation is the process of dividing a market into distinct segments that behave in the same way or have similar needs. The market obviously can be segmented in a number of ways and you need to understand this. Does the current mall's market segmentation suit your business? We need to look at the geographic, the location of the suburbs in and around the centre. The demographic, this is key. What's the age, the gender, the family size, the family life cycle, education, income, occupation. We look at the psychographic. This is just looking at people's personalities, their lifestyles, their values, their attitudes. We look at the behavioural, the benefits sought, the product usage rate, the brand loyalty, produce and use, the readiness to buy and decision making, the generational. Each generation has their own individual characteristics, the Gen Y versus the baby boomers. We're starting to build a picture of who our customer is. We look at the site selection. Typically we look at four important characteristics for the site. The market. It's got to have the size and potential for growth, not only now but also in the future. It's got to be organised. There's got to be prospects for local and international retailers and they've got to be interested in that market. The project attributes. Obviously you've got to have an acceptable return. There's an opportunity to leverage the centre's core strengths. The timing has to be right. Are you bringing it into the market at the right time? Typically the way we look at it is that planning is now, but it could take us up to 3 years to construct. What is the market going to be like in 3 years? It will be very different to now. If you need to partner, look for a market leader. They have to have shopping centre experience. This is key. You've got to have a history of completing projects. Development, management capabilities. Management is key, and they've got to have access to future developments. If we look at evaluating the subject site, the site characteristics must be analysed from the micro to the macro. Project should be, in most cases, on the corner of at least two major roads where possible. It must have ease of access for both pedestrians and vehicles. It must have great visibility and exposure. It must scream shopping centre. It must be located away from competition where possible. And obviously you want it to be located in a line of future growth. Were we to take this hotel as a centre for looking at the market around us, we would look that in our 5-kilometre area we have a number of different shopping malls. We have 7, in fact. We have the Hub Mall, Kohinoor City. Part of this is analysing your competition in terms of the location, the year they opened, how large they are, the anchors that they have, what are the other various unique characteristics that they have in your marketplace. You need to understand every element of your competition, how you fit within that positioning against your competitors. If we look at this rather simplistic trade area map, we would look at the convention centre being in the centre. You would notice to the right there is a number of competitors. In fact, it holds the majority of our competitors. In this instance, where we're looking at our strategy for growth and for development, or simply where we push our trade area, we may push more out towards the left-hand side where we've only got one competitor. It's understanding where you can fit within those. You know, we analyse each of the malls. You know, for the Hub Mall, it's known for grocery shopping, hanging out, eating and catching a late-night movie. It has a very good food court. It has a very good multiplex. You know, the customers there like to unwind, eat and window shop. Kohinoor City Mall, you know, it's a larger mall. It's opened in 2009. It's anchored by a supermarket, entertainment and food court. We look at the trading areas, the car parks. We understand everything about our competitor. We understand how we fit against our competitors. We want to determine the appropriate type of centre that fits your trade area and place you ahead of your competitors. Is it an open air, enclosed, hybrid, mixed use? You're going to consider your site constraints, what you can and can't build on that site. We look at the basic layouts. Is it a dumbbell? What works best for your site? We look at the expansion potential. Think ahead. We don't always need to build it all in one go. If we can build 100,000 square metres, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should build 100,000 square metres. What does our market research tell us? What can we fill in terms of the retailers that are available in the market? What sort of are the customers going to come into your mall? We look at the tenant merchandise mix analysis. This is critical. What is the vision of the project? How does it fit in with the needs of the retailers? What is the market demand? What is the size of spaces that they're looking for? We look at retail versus restaurant, food versus entertainment. You know, classically, where I come from in Malaysia is 25% of our tenancy mix can be F&B. How does it fit in your market? How critical is that? F&B, as we know, increases the length of the shopping time in your mall. How crucial is it within your mall? We look at the other complementary uses. Nowadays, we're looking at malls to be more than just shopping. You know, we look at health spas, we look at daycare facilities, we look at libraries. There's more than one reason why people are coming into your mall. How do you differentiate from your competitor? What do they have? What can you put in that will draw more customers towards you? Leasing requires knowledge. Your tenancy mix plan has to be right for your market. The commodity group plan will determine what tenancy mix classifications are needed with what proportion based upon the gaps or opportunities either within the centre or within the market. For each of the tenancy mix classifications, tenants can then be assessed based on those needs and what the options are from a local, regional or national perspective. It all depends on the centre, the space that is available, the tenant's other locations, if any, in the market, and the type of customer the centre draws versus the customer that the tenant draws and wants. You need to understand this. If we look at one of the case studies we did recently for a centre in Hanoi, it was a design layout review. We just looked in terms of how we changed the design before it was being constructed, and this was another way in terms of improving the efficiency of the building. The initial plan of IPH was inefficient, ineffective shopping mall. There were too many big-sized units that would not be leased at the high rental rate per square metre that the owner required. The total number of specialty shops was low, it was under 25 per floor. The shops were isolated, as you can see, because there was no common corridor and the access was only either internally or externally. It reduced the connectivity and customers' ability to navigate the various shops. From the get-go, it just wasn't going to work. What we basically did was we looked at replacing the middle garden with a central plaza for our event activities and casual leasing, another way to increase our income. We changed the layout. We reduced the average shop size while the shop's visibility is increased. This increased the average rent per square metre. We added a common area walkway which generated a traffic circuit. We relocated the escalators to balance the traffic flow, and we removed a lot of the signature cafe shops on the ground floor so we could reduce our costs. We increased our NLA. We increased and put in place a common area walkway, and we ended up with more specialty shops per floor. These smaller shops ended up with a higher rent per square metre. We ended up increasing the centre's total NLA by 13.5%, which obviously increased their return on investment. Each floor was now divided into 25 to 30 specialty shops. These shops were now more efficient and suited to the retailer's needs. Our design advice was carried out by APH and is being implemented in this centre. This was a clear case in terms of even from a new development, you can rejuvenate the development before it goes to market. Market research. Market research is key. I cannot say it enough. Why do we need market knowledge? We need to understand the product, which means the retail mix. The consumer research gives us market intelligence. It drives the right traffic. Typically, more people equals more frequency, more often equals more dwell time. This drives our sales drives our rents. You know, if we look at the unique aspects of the Indian market, there's a fast pace of industry development. There's a high population density, large-scale projects, a lot of vertical retail and mixed-use developments. There's a scarcity of land within populated city centres, which is why people are now looking to the outer tiers. There's improved demographics have led to a pent-up demand. There's emerging markets. You have a higher growth potential and greater opportunity to development, but there is still a lot of challenges in this marketplace to get your customers to shop in your shopping centres. On Saturday, I was in a shopping centre in Pune. It was empty. There was probably 100 customers in there. That's not what we want. It needs to be a lot more efficient than that on one of the busiest days of the week. We need to understand the market. Do you know your customer? Who is he or she? What is the picture that you have in terms of the ideal customer for your shopping centre? Is it qualitative versus quantitative research? We compare the market. We benchmark sales and pedestrian traffic performance where we have it. We should have sales figures. We should have traffic counters. We look at our market share analysis. We look at our competition analysis. Is it proactive or reactive? What is the right time research? Both are useful, so neither is more right or more wrong than the other. But the research that is undertaken needs to be right. It needs to be directed in the proper way. It needs to be solution-orientated and therefore is more often than not applicable to only one project. There is no canned solution or one-size-fits-all. Every shopping centre is different. We also use independent third-party research to convince not only our investors but also our retailers that it represents the true picture of the marketplace, not just what we want them to believe. Nowadays, we're looking at in terms of the market research, is our customer wants quality. They want price. They want variety and choice. They want convenience. They want value for money. How do we find out these factors? We look at consumer focus groups and expert interviews. We look at the data that's available in the marketplace, either released from the government or from other people. We look at the consumer demographics and we look at the technology that's available. You know, the consumers are now saying to us, make my life more fun because work's stressful, life's stressful. Help me feel more genuine. Help me find my community. Make my life healthier. Make my life more interesting. Make my life worthwhile. Help me get greater value for my time. How does your centre take that into account? How do you get the customer? How do we hear the market? We invest in knowledge. We allocate a market research budget. We collect retail-related data and statistics. We think about it. You know, we digest the data and we screen out the bias. We conduct retail-relevant surveys regularly because retail landscape and consumers change regularly. You can do exit surveys in your shopping centre every day of the week if you want to do them. 10, 20, you collate them. It's very cheap, easy way to do market research. Psychographic aspiration research to anticipate the consumer's needs. What are their needs? How are their needs growing? Do they want more IT? Do they want more food? What is the entertainment they want to look at? Market testing is a key for new retail developments. Get in a focus group. Have them look at your development. Does it fit their needs? Are there things that they would put in there that you haven't thought about or could move around in terms of your tenancy mix? We go back again. Have we forgotten to ask the people what they want? We look for the gaps in the marketplace. How do we position ourselves against our competitors? We assess our competitors' developments in both their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Where can we increase our strengths? We identify the unique selling proposition for each audience. We look at our demographic analysis. We ask for feedback, not only from our consumers, but also from our retailers. We look at the government statistics. We look at quantitative versus qualitative research projects. Our market research area and sales projections incorporates a competitive analysis. We look at the store size and types of retailers that we want within our mall and what they're looking for. We look at the market catchment area research data sales projections. We look at the market analysis in terms of the demographics, the customers, the competition. The demographics are the vital statistics of the marketing area. The psychographics is the use of demographics to study and measure attitudes, values, lifestyles and opinions for marketing purposes. They're a little bit intangible. They change. You can't measure them in terms of a statistical representation of the market. Because we have that experience, there is an element of intuition and gut instinct approach. I believe in that, but I back it up with my market research. Qualitative is simple. It's examining and drawing perceptions of the respondents based on their preferential indicators. It's a subjective approach. It's asking them their opinions, their thoughts. Everybody's opinions and thoughts can differ. It's smaller but focused samples are used. Typically we use them in customer focus groups where we have maybe 8 to 9 people. It's open-ended and ambiguous, but it can come up with some very useful information. Quantitative, on the other hand, can be numerically and statistically analysed. It's the statistical approach that can be extrapolated across populations in order to achieve validity and robustness to results. It's statistically significant, random samples representing the populations. It's closed-ended and unambiguous. Customers, what are they? They're fickle, unpredictable, whimsical, cash-conscious, motivated, disloyal. But talking to them via research gives you the best source of understanding them and the impact they have on your shopping centre. So we're beginning to understand our shopping centre profile today. We conduct a brand survey conducted with the customers to understand how they look at our centre. What is their awareness of your shopping centre? What is the awareness of any existing shopping centre refurbishment or previous development? Do they recall your centre logo? Do they recall your promotional campaigns to date? If you have a problem in any of these areas, then you have to look in terms of how you fix those problems. What does our customer think of our shopping centre versus our perceived positioning? These could be two very different. Okay, when we look at positioning, what does the research tell us? What describes the mix? Who's the customer? Where does your mall sit in your customer's mind? What place does it hold relative to competitors, and how will the positioning hold over time? This simple diagram is based on the axes in terms of a deep range offer and price, or a lack of variety and price variance, versus high ambience versus low ambience. In this instance, for this mall, it was an upmarket mall. They wanted to have the deep range offer. They wanted to have the high ambience. So for Wintergun, they were perfectly positioned. However, were they to do their research and found that they were in the purple one in terms of Post Office Square, they would have to dramatically change what they were trying to achieve. This helps us map in terms of the attitude and the thoughts of the customers in terms of how they view our shopping centre. This is key in terms of looking at not only where our shopping centre is now, but where we want to take it in the future. We go back to leasing. The goal of market research within your leasing strategy is to focus prospecting on tenants that fit your needs. It fits the market. It's not just a brand that you happen to think you want in that market, in that shopping centre that won't do any business. You've got to identify the weakest elements of your centre and fix those. It optimises the commodity group offerings and tenants mix. You know, we go back to my previous example where we're talking about F&B being 25% of the retail mix. That was key. You've got to understand in terms of how big the fashion component is. IT, department stores, supermarkets. You want to achieve growth in tenant sales. That means getting a tenancy mix that complements each other and draws in more customers. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the optimum tenancy mix gives us optimum traffic, which gives us optimum sales, which we're looking for is optimum rental and return on investment to the owner. The market profile for your centre. We look at the population, the tourism, socio-economic factors, the mall overview, buying power, market growth and supply and demand. The demography is important. What is the demography with not only your primary, secondary and tertiary trade area? Break it down. Understand the population in terms of housing, business, the age, the wealth, the status. What are their dependents in terms of children? Is it grandparents? Is it an ageing market in terms of an ageing population? We want to establish a trade area. A trade area or a catchment area provides the outline of expected shoppers and visitors by sales contribution and by area of residence. Research should collect data and information relating to demography, expenditure, frequency of visit and area of residence. The data can then be used to outline or delineate your trade area and to forecast footfall, patronage spend, market share, scalability and offer a measure of success to a new or existing property. Does your shopping centre have this information? It is invaluable. It is not a concentric circle. You know, it is looking in terms of the people's drive time, the impact of your competitors. This also has an impact in terms of major highways. Will people cross those major highways? Rivers, will they cross? Has a range of elements. What this does is enable us to drill down to exactly where our shopper is coming from. This means that your marketing is more targeted, your leasing is more targeted. You can look in terms of what their needs and wants are in that area. We then break it down. We know what the gender is. We have more males than females. We look at the ethnicity. We look at the religious groups. We look at the marital stature. Age is important. Why is age important? Because our key area can be, in this instance, the bulk of our population is between 20 and 49 years old. They earn the most money. They have the most money to spend. So this is a very good market to have. You know, we look at the estimated total population in our trade area. We look at their average gross household monthly income and also their average spend when they come into our shopping centre. This is key. You can have malls that have a large spend per customer in terms of your high-end shopping centres down to, let's say, a transit station which has a very low spend per customer but very high sort of number of customers going through their shopping centre. We look at the occupation. Obviously, this then tells us how much they're earning and how we target those markets. We have a fairly high student market in this area, in which case we looked at putting in some IT for them. We looked in terms of the professional and the office administrators, housewives. You know, very importantly is their personal income. Is it high? Is it low? This will impact in terms of the positioning of your shopping centre. No point putting in a high-end shopping centre in an area which is extremely low income. You know, for instance, in this case, approximately 71% of the respondents came from a 15-minute drive time. Our primary trade area was extremely strong. Not so much in the secondary trade area. But you need to understand this. We can then break it down further. We can look at why they visit our shopping centre. You know, we look at the percentages in terms of, is it comparison shopping? Is it our events and promotions? In this instance, 1% of our customers came in for our events and promotions. Not very successful. That's not what you want to see. Very much they came in for grocery shopping, which is 26% of the customers. Convenience, location, and easy access, and easy parking. These were issues that the customers had. They're the things that you need to address in your future shopping centre and also existing. You know, leisure and entertainment was extremely important, as was the food court. In most cases, you know, what they found out was that word of mouth was extremely low, and then they had organised tours. But understanding the media spend in terms of where they look for information in your marketplace is key. Is it TV? Is it radio? Is it the internet? Is it social media? That then directs your marketing campaigns in the right directions. This information is there for you. You just have to ask your customers. So a final audit report basically comes up with our market summary. We've got a very good, strong market overview. We've looked at our shopping mall management and we know where we need to fix. We know what we need to fix. We've looked at the finance of the mall. We know where the problems lie within the mall. The leasing, we've understood that. We've got a strong market and public relations plan. We now understand, because we've got a market share map of the shopping centre trade area. We have maps showing the best sites in the marketplace. Where are the prime opportunities? We've worked out a centre concept and configuration recommendation based on the market research and our own information that we've put together. We have a defined tenancy mix plan in terms of where we want to proceed. We've looked at our operations and management maintenance. Don't forget these areas. The operations of your shopping centre is key. The maintenance of your shopping centre is key. We come up with an overall recommendation. We now go into the strategy side of it, where we look for a business plan in terms of rejuvenation of your mall. We're obviously going to use the audit as a base. We're now looking at the competition and how we're going to differentiate from our competitors. We're going to determine what the best options are. Is it refurbishment? Is it redevelopment? Do we need to change the positioning? Do we need to change the type of shopping centre? What will your centre become in terms of number of levels, size, rent? What are the expectations? What is our customer profile? What is our market size? Return on investment. It's got to be there. It's key. You analyse the data and determine the best centre for your site. Is it super regional, regional, sub-regional, community centre, power centre, lifestyle centre? Does it need to be built all at once? We look at the demographics and the market demand. We look at the retailer needs. If you don't build a centre that suits the retailer needs, they will not come into it. And we look at the customer needs, because obviously they're then following for the retailer. Always question the plan. You go through this many times. Is it sized to meet the needs and wants of our primary trade area, taking into consideration your competition? Does it consider the future growth potential in your design? Is it a phased approach? Do we build it all at once, or do we build it in phases? Is it positioned in accordance with the trade area? Focus on their return on investment. Remember to look at your cost versus returns. Look at the customer demand survey to vet your aspirations. It's got to be state of the art. Few commercial ventures are more complex than shopping centres. Their nature and purpose requires numerous compromises in design, economy, effectiveness, profitability and many other variables. This makes evaluation of priorities very difficult. A successful shopping centre must be conceived, developed, built and administered by many experts in different fields, but all that have expertise in shopping centres. A lot of the time, the biggest of them all's design problem is it has no personality. What we know of that, the old mall, there's a lack of lively environmental, graphic and design elements. New malls, we need more graphics, more design elements. We've got to make it more appealing and an upbeat place to shop. It's got to suit our customers, it's got to suit our retailers. What are the design barriers in India? You want to avoid the following: a lack of walking areas. Or in most cases, it can be just simply the common area in front of the shops is too narrow. Typically, we see a lot of projects that only have a walkway of 2 metres in front of the shops. As a minimum nowadays, it's got to go from anywhere between 4 to 8 metres. Long term, what this also means is within that space is that you can always do kiosks, which will increase your income. If natural daylight, ensure there's no excessive heat load. If you're going to do skylights, make sure that they're well shielded, otherwise the centre becomes too hot. Poor ventilation, also another problem. It's limited or overcrowded common areas. This goes back to the size of your common areas. There's no seating or rest areas. It's poorly designed parking and internal roadway system. Where the people come into your mall, it's the first point of contact. If you make it too hard for them to get into your mall, they will go away. They will go somewhere easier. And unfortunately, the way that our business is going is security and safety are key. They're crucial. Maybe not now, but you've got to design in the features for the future. You've got to have those CCTV cameras. You've got to have those well-trained guards. So we look at the proposal. The proposal requires a concurrent advertising, promotions and public relations strategy to be implemented and maintained from the pre-construction phase to the centre's grand opening. We need to have a plan that incorporates our marketing, advertising, promotions, public relations during the pre-construction, the construction and the post-opening within a budget. We envisage there will be many opportunities for the centre marketing to work hand in hand throughout the project period. It thereby enables us to extract maximum returns for the financial resources available within the budgets. It's planned. We look at our development schedule. It's clear in terms of our mobilisation. How long does that take? Is it 1 or 2 months? The concept design, 3 to 7 months. Design development within month 8 to 12. We look at our documentation. The implementation is at 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We also go back through and we look at our defects period. The plan for the refurbishment redevelopment must cover all of those aspects of the business. Every element is different. The objective of the strategic plan for the project is, if it's an existing centre, we want to maintain the shoppers' traffic volume. We want to uphold the centre's revenues. We want to educate as well as stimulate the local community's sense of anticipation and excitement leading into the launch of the new vibrant look. It's irrefutable that the project plans will affect customers and retailers alike. In order to react to these changes, which undoubtedly will occur in the progress of the project plans, the marketing program needs to be flexible. However, while the program details may change, the strategies and marketing direction must remain firmly in place. Look at the elements that you're going to change. Is it a complete demolition? Look at your signage, your railings, your ramps, your bubble lifts, ceilings, walls. M&E is key. If the centre is more than probably 15 years old, you need to look at your lifts, escalators and air conditioning. Look at your roof, your flooring. You know, typically a lot of shopping centres use a homogeneous tile. For a customer, this tires them out. It's very difficult on the feet. It's also very slippery. You know, a better floor is one that is non-slip and is going to last a length of time. It may cost you a little bit, but you get the return over the life of the property. Nowadays, we're looking at different things in terms of the larger centres, putting in mother's rooms. It's an area where a mother can go and feed the baby. It's a quiet area. It can be a point of difference to your competitors, so long as you have an area where you do have a significant number of mothers in that area. Look at your entrances, look at the exterior of the building. This sells your building. Your management offices. There's a lot of times where I feel sorry for the management because they're in small, pokey offices. It's very difficult for them to do their job. Look at the lighting. Specify the lux level to your architects and your M&E people. This is key. A lot of shopping centres are too dark. Darkness does not mean that it's cooler or it's more safe. They want to be bright. So look at the lux level for not only specifying exterior, car parks, common areas, toilets. You know, typically we look at a lux level in our toilets of 300 to 500. We use a lot of white and bright colours. The reason for that is because it feels clean, right? Look at colours that actually make it and feel clean. And that's key, and this is where you need to specify within your design brief to make sure you get what you need. Look at the painting. Typically in Asia we use a lot of emulsion paint. What this is, it's a very chalky paint. Every time you put your finger on it, it gets a mark. Get something that's got a little bit more silicone in it, because then it's easier and it lasts a lot longer, easier to clean. You know, we look at the classifications again. Are we going up to super regional? You know, we're looking at a mega centre, a regional, a sub-regional, a neighbourhood. Is it an outlet centre? Is it a lifestyle centre? You need to understand what each of these centres is. ICSC, great resource for information. Being a member of ICSC all my life, you can get a lot of information from them. Here's their classifications in terms of each of those malls. It just helps you understand in terms of what's needed. But in some cases, this is very American orientated. It may be different, and it will be different for India. You know, if you look at the lifestyle centre here, they're saying it's up to 10,000 square metres. Nowadays, they're doing it up to 150,000, 200,000 square metres. So it will change, but at least it gives you a basis. So what is a super regional centre? It usually incorporates 2 full-line department stores, a discount department store, up to 2 supermarkets and 250 plus specialty stores. It's larger than 100,000 square metres. It's positioned as a day-out experience. It includes good entertainment and leisure tenancies. It's a broad range of shopper facilities and amenities. It's everything under one roof. It's frequently multi-level. And also in terms of parking is absolutely crucial. In this instance, we look at more of a gun barrel mall where the anchor tenants are at either end, and also a regional centre. It's only got 1 full-line department store. It's got a DDS, it's got a supermarket, 100 plus specialties. You know, the GLA is typically between 45 and 100,000. It's still a one-stop shop because it's the central point of that area. It also includes entertainment and leisure and a wide range of shopper amenities. Sub-regional, they're a smaller size shopping centre, right? They're typically between 20 and 50,000 square metres. Convenience is the key driver. Typically these are anchored by a very good hypermarket, and that's what draws people into the shopping centre. It's mission shopping. What that means is they're coming there for a reason. They come there to shop. That's not a bad thing, because effectively people are shopping for their groceries, depending on your market, anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. But it's just understanding what each of these is. Neighbourhood centres, you know, they're a lot more specialised. They're a lot more specific. They're typically put up in areas where the land cost isn't so high, where you're looking for a GLA of around sort of 10,000 square metres, very close to residentials, and it's just catering to the basic day-to-day needs. Don't see a lot of those in sort of the Asian or the India market. Outlet malls. Got to love the outlet malls, but they're still evolving, they're still growing. It's basically selling brand name goods at a discount, usually out of style goods at least 1 season behind the market. However, what we're seeing in America is people are manufacturing for their outlets. It's not out of season. It's current, it's there, it's now. The conflict we're getting in Asia at the moment, where, especially in Malaysia, is that the full brand retailers are saying we really don't want our product in the outlet malls because we suffer in terms of our return. So it's becoming very slow in terms of coming to market. Malaysia, for instance, has got 1 outlet mall at the moment, with another probably 3 under planning. But you still need to understand this. Is there an opportunity within your market to do this? Can you get the retailers on board? Because typically without them it's not going to work. You're not going to get the American retailers in the force that they are coming from a Simon's or one of the more successful malls en masse. The majority of it will be the local market. They're typically on grade, 1 level, exterior car parking. Lifestyle centres are becoming more the natural trend in terms of shopping centres in the market. Typically they used to be located near affluential residential suburbs, but that's changing. They're catering to a customer that likes the outdoor environment. It's going back to a natural environment which is not fully enclosed. It's very much more streetscape. It's very much, you know, the city square. You know, when I did this up, you know, doing on the ICSC membership, it was up to 8,000 square metres. You know, I've seen in the last sort of 3 years, 4 years, where they're going above 150,000 square metres. You know, we did one up to 300,000 square metres. It's multi-purpose. It's leisure time destination. It incorporates virtually up to a super regional mall, but it is open air. You need to understand, though, the restrictions and constraints of this type of development. Your costs are cheaper because you don't have common area air conditioning, but it's making the retailers understand that people will walk in an outdoor environment. It changes their perspective. You need to understand how to change their perspective to get them to accept this. But they're a very nice shopping centre to do. Bonifacio High Street in Manila was one of the first examples in Asia, and it's a very good example. If you look at the floor plan, nice landscaping down the middle, makes it a very nice day out. There's a lot of families that sit in there and have picnics, and then the retail is on the exterior. In design, you know, a good centre is a visual experience. It's got to follow function. It's got to respect the environment, physical and social. It's got to emphasise the business objectives. In this case, what does the retailer need to get out of the shopping centre? It's got to allow for organic growth opportunity. Effectively, a shopping centre is a box. It changes internally all the time. Those common area walls for the retailers change according to demand, from a retailer going from 80 square feet to going to 2,000 square feet. We're just demolishing walls. It's got to provide the amenities needed and desired. You know, it's got to have good toilets, it's got to have good car parking, it's got to have the seating, it's got to have the information desk. These are all critical. It's making it a better experience for your customer. You know, you need to look at a proper roadwork network that has to be easy in and out from the public roads. Can you link it to the MRTs, the LRTs, the monorails, the buses? This is where you look at terms, the long-term plans for your market, so that if you can incorporate next to a train station or an LRT, this is phenomenal traffic. We've just finished one in Malaysia where the expected traffic just from the LRT is 160,000 people a day. That's going straight through the mall because they've done it in such a way it goes from LRT to the train station. Great traffic flow, opportunity to basically grab those people as they go past. It's got to be convenient car parking. It's not authority requirements, it's what actually the customer needs. And typically it's hard in a lot of the developing markets because you're building for maybe 5 or 10 years down the track. At the moment there's a lot more motorbikes than cars. But eventually there'll be a lot more cars than motorbikes and they take up a lot more space. You limit the number of car parks, you limit the turnover for your shopping centre. So we map that. We look at how you get in and out of the property, right? This is key. Does it work? Is there choke points? If you're going onto a main road, is there a slip road so they can get out? You don't want it backing up in your busy periods. You know, we're looking at the retail areas with escalators or travelators. You know, if we've got supermarkets, they need travelators. We look at the vertical transport in terms of lifts and escalators. Typically, 80% of your customers will use the escalators over lifts, but you still need it in terms of getting goods in and customers that prefer using the lifts. You've got to have state-of-the-art restroom facilities. They're a good point in terms of positioning yourself differently to your customers. How does it link to any airport for travel or trains? You know, tram or buggies as people movers. In big shopping centres now, what you're seeing is the golf carts converted into opportunities to move customers around the property. The only people that walk around large shopping centres in terms of super regional is us in one day. As shopping centre people, we're the only people silly enough to keep walking around that shopping centre for 2 or 3 hours. Your customer will shop different parts of that shopping centre on different days, depending on what their needs are, and you need to understand this. We then map that pedestrian access in terms of around the property. You know, the tenancy mix plan will change for the different shopping centres, be it the big box or be it the super regionals. You know, you look at which type of centre suits your positioning and your customer needs. Tenancy mix goals, you need to address these when you're going through, is it's got to meet the consumer demand in terms of the wants and needs. It's got to create traffic. It's got to prolong the duration of the shopping trip. You need to understand how long that is. You know, impulse sales versus cross-shopping. Look at your rent or occupancy costs as a percentage of the sales. You look at the experience of history. What is the difference between your national tenants versus your mum and pop? A lot of shopping centres we're seeing are becoming exactly the same because it is all the same, national and international talents. You know, 10 years ago or 12 years ago when I left Australia, that was probably our biggest problem. We then went out searching for individual operators that would give us a point of difference inside our shopping centre. Yes, people want the Levi's, they want the Adidas. They also want those small brands that provide them something different. You know, look in terms of how you improve the retail sales. Marketing and leasing must work together. You look at the current and historical financial picture. What are the best retailers to fill the mix? How do you fix your problems, right? If you're going to rejuvenate your shopping centre, let's fix all the problems that you have, let's not keep them. You want to improve the category requirements in terms of where the gaps are. You know, and as I said before, it's balancing the types of retailers. Also, at the end of the day, the retailer decisions take time, so you need to plan ahead. You cannot go out to the retailer 2 months before you open. You know, if we're talking to department stores, we're anywhere from 12 to 24 months before we open because they're a key anchor. Same with supermarkets. For the major brands, it could be anything from 6 to 12 months. It gives you time for plan. If they say an outright no, then you can basically put up your backup plan. You want to open your shopping centre with at least an 80% to 90% occupancy. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So it's getting the right number of tenants in each category to meet the needs of the customers. It's getting the right types of retailers within the categories. Typically what we do is we identify the top 5 or top 10 in every category, and they're the ones that we target first because they're the strongest. They're the ones that the customers want. They're the ones that are going to bring in the sales to your shopping centre. We then bring in the secondary retailers once we've done the other retailers. Typically because sometimes we have to give away a little bit of rent to those retailers to get them in, and we get it back from the secondary retailers once they're coming in because of you've got the major brands and you've got the credibility. You benchmark your centre versus other shopping centres. And it really is an art of getting the right tenants in the right location in order to maximise sales. It's not letting that tenant say, I want that space. That may not suit your tenancy mix. So as we said before, it's getting the tenancy mix plan that's right for the market. We want a leasing action plan. We put this in place. It's clearly understood. The owner signs off on it in terms of what they want to achieve. We've determined the weak categories, the category voids and complementary categories. We've identified the specific merchandise needs from research. We've created that wish list of prospective tenants with their necessary square footage or square metres of space that we need. We're starting to plot that within our plan. We lease floor plan as a visual guide. We start putting our tenant placement in there in terms of how it fits and how it works. We budget for construction and other improvements. Do you need to put in a fit-out contribution? Do you need to put in a rent-free contribution? We look in terms of prospective retail sales analysis or traffic counts. We then have a leasing plan and an activity report that basically suits in terms of where our development wants to go. It also is a clear plan for you to understand and also get signed off on in terms of where that mall will operate. It's a good time to look at your lease. Right? Your lease is not a static document. I go into a lot of shopping centres where they haven't changed it for 5, 10 or 15 years. It's out of date. It doesn't reflect the current sort of legislation that's coming into the market. It doesn't give you the rights that you need out of the market, or in some cases, it's so bent towards the landlord, the retailer's never ever going to sign it. So we look in terms of how that's applicable and what we need to change for the project. You know, the tenants have got to fit the centre positioning. It's got to fit the location of the neighbourhood, the centre concept, the positioning, and also the physical traits of that centre. You've got to consider what the positioning of the tenants that you're bringing in. What are the characteristics of the other tenants? How do they complement each other? You know, what are the quality operators in the marketplace? Are they experienced? Inexperienced retailers need a lot of hand-holding, but they can end up being very good retailers. Do they have a high standard of service? You want that, because those retailers end up being the positioning for your shopping centre. If they're giving bad service, that reflects badly on the shopping centre. And obviously, is the product or service they sell appropriate for the shopping centre? Fit-outs are key. You know, the stores must be unique, sensational, outstanding and memorable. The focus should be on the stores, not the mall, the stores themselves. A fit-out manual is key in this process. It's got to be very descriptive. We use a lot of photos, we use a lot of plans to show the retailer exactly the type of signage that we want, the type of shop front that we want. If we're doing a high-end shopping centre, obviously we have more of the shop front that's enclosed with a door because that's what their expectation is. But if we're doing low to mid-range shop fronts, then we want to make sure that 60% of the shop front is open. It encourages people to go into their malls. We want it to become a living stage. Every time your retailer updates and upgrades their fit-out, it improves your shopping centre. You know, we follow the trends that are in place or will be popular. It's got to be a reasonable price. We're doing shopping centres now between 5 and 6 metre ceiling heights. This really does increase their fit-out costs by 30 or 40% because that glass at the front and the other fixtures and fittings inside is more expensive. You've got to understand that process. However, by doing those high ceiling heights, you get a very good perspective on those stores. It looks brilliant. The theme should be in accordance with the habit and nature of the target market. When you're going through the fit-out manual and when they're complying with the plans and processes, you're going through to make sure it fits the marketplace. If you don't want concrete on the floor, you make sure they don't do concrete on the floor. And it's got to be in tune with the market buying power. There's no point putting in upmarket retailers into a low market area. Or, perceptually, there's materials that you can use that the customer will imply that it's an upmarket shop, just simply in terms of the fact that you could be using brass or timber or heavy-set marble. You know, and this is where we look at the themes and signages when we go through in terms of some of the fit-out examples. We look at how we can make our kiosks and island units attractive but different and also see-through because you still want to maintain the sight lines. You do not want your kiosks obstructing your stores. Food courts, they're a classic element. Food Republic in Singapore is creating one of the most unique food courts really anywhere. The other good operator is obviously Central out of Thailand. Understand this element, understand how it fits into your marketplace. In some instances, people want a very low-end food court. In other instances, this fits. And in this instance, you pay for the capital cost of that retailer because that's their demand in terms of coming into your shopping centre. You know, look at the push carts, the kiosks and the bum bakes. You don't put these in immediately into new centres. You let the market grow and then start feeding them in individually. In a lot of cases, what a lot of owners do to ensure that the standard is there is that they purchase these themselves and then casually lease them out to the retailers. These are a good opportunity to build small retailers in your marketplace. They start from these and then they move upwards to your stores. As I said before, when you're going through the lease, go through and review it. Look in terms of the guarantor requirements, any security deposits that you put in place. You know, you look at the delivery and possession, you look at the insurance that's required, update it, and insurance has to come in every year. You look at exclusivity clauses. Where possible, don't give exclusivity clauses. They just create a nightmare for the rest of your life in that mall. You look at the restrictions in terms of what they can and can't do. You look at the documents they need to provide. Any allowances or payments, renewal options, assignments. These have got to be clear in the document, so it's clear in terms of retailer reaches the end of their lease. Is it a straightforward new option, new lease? Is it a fixed market increase? Is it a percentage increase? Can you get rid of them? Because if they've been a bad retailer and you've got an automatic renewal, then you're stuck with them for another 3 or 5 years, depending on your lease agreement. You look at what the land work is versus the tenant works. You look at assignment and sublettings. We have a lot of department stores around that basically sublet out all their space, and it's retailers that you want within your shopping centre. You know, Malaysia, for one of our shopping centres, what we did was actually only allowed them to sublet 10% of their space. Because what was happening was they were poaching our retailers out of the main area of the shopping centre and putting them into the side of the department store, which didn't work for us. We look at what sort of financial reporting they need to give us in terms of sales figures. And we obviously, the key there is the termination rights and penalties. You've got to have a sound marketing strategy in place. It's got to have a good advertising strategy. The media mix, creative development, it's got to suit the market. You've got to have a good promotion strategy. Promotions work in 2 ways. Are they a traffic driver? Are they a sales driver? You can have 10,000 people in your shopping centre to meet the latest Bollywood star, but it doesn't necessarily promote sales. In a lot of cases, it's the reverse because it just stops people from going into the shops. So identify which one that you want. Is it a traffic or is it sales? Customer loyalty, customer retention strategies. You know, we're still seeing these work. Some work extremely well, some don't, because as I've mentioned before, customers aren't necessarily that loyal. The retailer development strategy, in a lot more cases, in more developed shopping centres, you're looking at how you can help your retailers. You can bring in people that show them how to fit out their stores, how to drive sales. It's a more proactive way of helping them to basically improve their overall performance. Mystery shoppers are another one where you get people in that come in and basically tell you what the response is from their staff. A tourism strategy. If you're in a tourism area, then you need obviously to get those tourists. The marketing mission. Have a mission in place. You want to generate a sense of excitement and anticipation for the various stages of opening. You've got to instill a sense of pride and ownership amongst the community at large. They've got to feel it's their shopping centre. It's part of their community. You want to maximise the occupancy of the retail space. As I said before, don't open without 80% occupancy. You know, reposition and establish a clear branding and image for the centre amongst the stiff competition. As I said, this mall that we saw on the weekend, you would rebrand that shopping centre. You would change the name of that shopping centre because it is not working. There's too many negative connotations for it at the moment. You want to regain, retain and attract quality shoppers to the shopping centre. It's not a numbers game. It's getting those people that are going to come into your centre and spend. So you've got to establish good PR communication with the media to ensure media releases are forward to all media sources. You've got to assist valued retailers in conquering their fear and uncertainty via various communication tools. Create a distinct refurbishment or redevelopment image of the centre to complement with your image, you know, your tagline. It's our place. But within, when you're doing the refurbishment, you can change that up, and I've got some examples later. You want to impress and attract potential retailers or customers in terms of your efforts in continuing the uplift of the centre. If you cannot impress them, they're not going to come into your shopping centre. The pre-construction overview. The phase of this plan is intended to prepare us for the main focus of the project marketing, including commissioning photography to be used in various campaigns and undertaking marketing activity associated with the construction of the centre. It's an opportunity to prepare for the main route of the entire marketing plan. It makes our competitors aware, it makes our tenants aware, it makes our customers aware. There has to be extreme coordination between all parties. You need a good branding agency in there. They're working on a tight deadline but expected to give good design comments. Within the various departments, in terms of the management and head office, there needs to be a proper communication process. The project department has to basically give information out to all parties to ensure that everybody understands where you are in the project. You need to split the communications into a pre and post project strategy. You need to look at before and during the work, communications are kept to informing the public that work is in progress, using visuals of the new fit out, what they're going to get. So there's a little bit of drama now, but in the future you'll get a better shopping centre. You know, after completion, propose a campaign which is rediscover XY Centre. Get them to come in because it's something new. Get them to, they may not have been in there for 2 or 3 years. It shows the owner, to both the retailer and the customers, it shows the owner is committed to the mall and is walking the talk. A lot of the arguments we get in shopping centres from retailers a lot of the time is, well, the owner really doesn't care what's happening, it's run down, it's tired, there's no marketing, the leasing is out of sync and everything else. The customers that can then look forward to better facilities and a new look and feel. You know, during the progress, customers can still enjoy exciting events and promotions. You know, the sub-messages can be very good in terms of the owner is making moves in the market. It's good profile. The centre will enjoy a revitalised mall. What is the centre reclaiming? Is it going to be reclaiming a fashion niche? What sort of giveaways are they giving? Where is it going, and how do you get the customer to understand that? The advertising strategy has got to work in tandem with your other leasing strategies. It's got to relate to your marketing in terms of creative execution. It must stand out above your competitors. It needs to reach your customer in terms of the right location with the right frequency. Also, this comes back to another cost versus impact. Just because you're doing television doesn't mean that you'll get the most impact. If your customer's not watching that program, it's a lot of money spent for very little result. It's one of the reasons why we incorporate in our market research what media do you use to make your decisions. In a lot of smaller shopping centres we use in terms of a combination of newspaper, radio, social media, because it's more effective and it's more cost effective. Your website is also a very cost effective marketing tool. You know, and this is where we go through is catalogues and flyers, different markets, different centres. Upmarket centres tend to use catalogues progressively because it's pushing a fashion element and it basically pushes the positioning. You know, if we're doing magazines, similarly. In this case, this is one of the visuals in terms of saying, look, we're improving to serve you better. It's a very visual element. This is what we were. This is what we're becoming. Pushing our positioning line in terms of it's our place. We have bunting around the mall. These are very graphic elements. It's very strong colours. The branding agency is key in this. It's pushing not only the centre name but also the company name. You know, the butterfly concept in this stage was simple in terms of explaining that we're evolving. We're going into something very beautiful, and we could use that element and that image in a number of different ways. So the issues you're going to get through the refurbishment, your redevelopment, is that you need to look at your communication. You've got to send accurate messages to all target audiences. It's got to be done frequently. It's got to update them on a regular basis. The management staff need to understand where they are. They're the first point of contact for any retailers, for any complaints. You know, you need to do, for instance, weekly HOD meetings where the staff can get together and understand what's happening in the process of the week. You know, in instances, you can put together a special team. Their whole focus is looking in terms of how that refurbishment and that redevelopment goes. This can be from morning walkthroughs to ensure that everything's safe and in its place, to ensure other times that the workers are not sleeping in the shopping centre. You know, it's a constant case of memos and emails. It's working with the project department to give the updated latest info. The retailers then aren't finding out after the fact. They know what's happening. Your customer service personnel, they're on the ground. They need to be briefed on a regular basis. They need to be explained to the customers. Your community and media. Media is a good way of letting people know in terms of what's happening. You know, the retailers are key. You know, at the start of this process, you need to do a presentation. You need to develop a tenants kit that not only goes down to the existing tenants, but also to those new tenants coming in that leasing is talking to. It can give you a background and the vision, the mission. But most importantly, it's just saying, look, this is the current image, this is the future plans, 3D drawings, this is how we're changing our positioning, this is why we're getting better, this is why we're not who we once were. You know, it's developing a story that is believable to the retailer, that it's giving them a reason why they should come into your mall. Otherwise, you're just like any other mall. You know, for the shopper as they're walking around, there's a number of ways of doing this. It can be an information board or the information counter. at all your main entrances. You've got poster standees, you've got hoarding boards. Everything is dressed up, everything looks good. Even though you've got the works happening, it's all basically covered behind hoarding and also nice graphics. You can put out a newsletter. You've got better directional signage. You've got safety precaution notices around your mall. The branding agency is key in this, in terms of working with your management people to design the whole refurbishment and redevelopment package. You know, marketing needs to work closely with the project management to ensure that all the safety precaution notices are designed according to standard regulations. Some of the issues that come up during the time of your thing is there's insufficient staff to handle the increased workload. You know, for instance, where we're doing one refurbishment, it was basically happening after hours, started at 10 o'clock at night, went through to 8 o'clock in the morning. We had to change the schedule of some of our staff, so that's the times they worked. The fear of the business being affected, this is key. The retailers are worried that their business is going to go backwards, it's going to be going downhill. You've got to show them that the plan is in place to counter this. It will work towards your advantage. The refurbishment that I'll show you later, we actually didn't get any traffic loss at all, and we actually saw sales increases during a refurbishment that carried out for 13 months. Any inconvenience that is incurred is corrected very quickly. You have the opportunity, if you bust a window, to fix it very quickly. The retailer doesn't have to wait 6 months for a process to get it fixed. You know, the solution to these problems, it's constant circulars to the tenants. They can be daily, they can be weekly, depending on what happens. It's having that channel of communication process. By having one team that's purposely based, is there the communication point. It's giving them the work schedule updates to not only the tenants, but also the customers. We let the public know early. We make them aware that certain car parks may be closing down, certain entrances may be closed. So they're aware of the issues well ahead of the time. They don't just walk in and they're inconvenienced. During the construction period, the communication becomes even more critical. You know, we're looking more in terms of the management staff, the meetings, the internal memos, daily inspections. You know, every morning after everything stops is that you've got to make sure that there's no danger or any issues involved in terms of leaking pipes, air conditioning that's been cut off. I've had instances where the contractors just cut an air conditioning duct and I've had no air conditioning for 20 shops. Could he explain why he did it? Well, no. But they're the sort of things that you need to immediately get on top of. Customer service personnel in terms of daily briefing, and also sending out the press releases. It's a way of getting good media for your shopping centre. You know, for the retailer, they've got their refurbishment kit. They've got a circular. You can do hard hat tours to take them through the shopping centre, and this is also a good idea. You know, the shopper, as we mentioned before, there's a number of different mediums that you've got, and it's just making sure that all the notices are properly placed every day. You know, we look at the fact that our casual leasing income can be affected during this period. So we need to look in terms of how we make up that income, or at least that we're not going to get it. We look at unforeseen expenses. It's having a budget in place to handle things that go wrong. You know, the promotion is planned, so it's making sure that that continues in the way and function that you want. The traffic flow. You know, it's looking at how the traffic flow is impacted and how you can basically reduce that impact. We have to be aware that there could be injuries to the public. How do we counter this? What are the processes in place to make sure that there's minimal impact? Because typically they're the ones that blow up in the media, and that's where there can be a lot of problems. You know, miscommunication can lead to inefficiencies. Any decreases in tenant sales, is there a way to overcome this? The inconveniences to the public, you know, what are the trash disposal problems, the level of pollutions? Typically, a lot of these issues you address up front in terms of your strategy, in terms of your business plan. You're aware that they're going to happen. You've got ways in terms of actually reducing the impact. Post-opening, this is key. This is where we're getting out into the marketplace and telling people, okay, we're done. This is what we've got for you. A press conference is great. It's got to be held promptly to provide the necessary information to the media and the concerned public. This will normally follow suit after the grand official launching, but that can be dependent in terms of what you're trying to achieve. We try and create a double exposure. We do these on separate occasions to create as much exposure in the media as possible. We want the press conference to increase our shoppers' traffic. The grand launching is key. It gives people another reason to come into your shopping centre. You know, we need to focus our resources in creating a grand official launching to mark the opening of the facelifted centre. You know, we expect to invite VIPs to grace this launching event, mass press coverage, and the customers coming in. Leading up in the post-opening, there's extensive advertising. It's one of the areas where you spend the majority of your money. You know, it's announcing your new look. It's creating a hype for it. It's using different media. At this stage, you can use the wide range of media from television through to buses, through to magazines, etc. You want to flood the centre with internal and external banners and buntings. You're creating a carnival environment. This is where you continue working with your rebranding and your branding agency to create that interesting look for your shopping centre. The collaterals have to target the targeted group of potential customers in your trade area. It's a very targeted approach. We're doing this with a public relations campaign. The public relations objectives include, we've got to support the advertising strategies. Public relations is free. It doesn't cost us any money. It maintains the communication between the retailers and the centre management. In a lot of cases, the retailers are hearing about your centre refurbishment through the media. It can encourage them when they're talking to your leasing manager to look in terms of coming to your shopping centre. You've got to develop an effective media relations strategy. You've got to develop a strong relationship between the local community and the centre. You know, we look at our targeted audience. You know, it's our management staff, it's our customer service personnel, it's media, it's retail, it's potential retailers, it's community, it's customers. You know, we look in terms of what opportunities are available to us in terms of within the centre and externally in terms of hoarding boards or standees or clear directional signage. You've got to look at the opening support for the retailers. This is an area where you use their marketing funds to help promote the shopping centre. So you want to make contact, you want to ascertain their opening plans, how they can fit in within your own marketing plans, because it doubles or triples the amount of marketing spend you then have. You've got to make sure that they use the logo. You want to confirm the announcements in terms of the leasing of the new retailers that are coming into your shopping centre. Make sure the website and the directories are updated. Make sure that you've got the pre-opening and post-opening media statements done well ahead of time. You know, if they're refitting, you know, make sure that they've got hoarding signage on the outside that shows what they're changing to. Discuss any support packages. What can the centre offer? If you're going to run marketing campaigns that are linked to commodity groups in terms of doing fashion promotions, make sure they're involved. And make sure they have sufficient time to get involved in those too. After they open, it's always nice to give them flowers. You've got to give them their retailer training guide or marketing calendars. You want to get them involved in the marketing. It's easy to engage a new retailer. You've got to make sure they understand the communication channels in terms of emails, memos and newsletters, or a retailer-only section of the centre website. You want to gather information on their opening trade and use that within your media releases. And once again, we want to foster cross-promotional opportunities through their own networks. Who can they bring in? A lot of music stores can bring in movie stars. You know, if we look at this case study, Subang Parade was a long-term successful shopping centre, just located 15 kilometres away from the city. 23 years after its first opening in 98, it was showing its deterioration in several aspects of the building, the facilities, the management, and losing its competitives. In this instance, they'd waited probably 15 years too long. The vacancies were increasing while the rental was dropping. The number of complaints from customers and tenants was also increasing. You know, back then we looked at some of the numbers. The occupancy before the refurbishment was 87%. It was not good and the rental was decreasing. With the increasing and intense competition from over 100, which is now 120 shopping centres in Kuala Lumpur for a population of 6 million people, we made the decision to refurbish the whole centre without closing the centre, which was a first in Malaysia. This meant that all the work actually had to happen overnight. During the 12 months of the refurbishment, all the shops were open with a full year rent income for the owner. This was great. What we're looking was, the refurbishment was strategic and the timing was critical. However, refurbishments are the most difficult activity that you can undertake in your shopping centre, as it's an operating shopping centre, it's not a greenfield site. You need to understand that the businesses are still running. So it required a well thought out plan and strategy to achieve the following results. In fact, in this instance, it took us 18 months of planning in order to do the refurbishment. You know, we look at a lot of the before and after. We look at the exterior of the building. It was refreshed from the outside. The new logo was put in place. We wanted to attract the customers' attention as they went past. We wanted to reassure the interest of existing frequent customers. We rebranded and repositioned the shopping centre to say we've changed, we're better, we're not what we were before. We kept the name because that was, in our market research, people realised and recognised that it was a strong name. It was just really the centre itself that had suffered. The overall look we made was brighter. It gave a new feeling to the customers. This was a surface finish. There was no structural change within the mall, bar some small works in terms of the balustrades. Because of the colours we used in this instance, as you can see, the white makes it look better. It makes it look cleaner and it's a colour that lasts a lot longer. Because of this, the shops become more outstanding. They popped out because the focus was on the shops themselves, more so than the building or the floor tiles, because we wanted customers to pay more attention to the shops. You know, we looked at issues in terms of the leakage of the ceiling was fixed, but at the same time we repainted it to a white colour because it made it brighter. We got better lux level throughout the shopping centre. It also helped us to save in terms of cost of energy. You know, in terms of lux level, this was another area because we had the natural light coming in. At night time, it was very dark. The existing lights weren't sufficient in terms of lighting that up area. So we put in new high bay lightings, which gave us a higher lux level. We made sure that we worked with the lighting supplier and lighting designer to ensure that we got that lux level. And they also incorporated power saving features, so we saved money in that respect. You know, we looked at simple and white floors, walls and ceilings. As you can see here, it went from a column, which is a feature which we didn't want to making it less of a feature, even though it was a very awkward column. It drove the customers' attentions through the mall to the shops. Your information desk, we now call them guest services desks. These are key in your malls, depending on the size of your mall. It not only provides information, but we also, in this instance, incorporated carpets, chairs. People could sit down there and relax. We provided better services to the customers in terms of having wheelchairs, strollers. They could do public announcements from there. In this instance, this is the one column in the shopping centre that's red. Why? Because we wanted to draw people's eye to that point and make them understand that was the guest services area. And it's not an information desk, it's guest services. Your customer is a guest. We had ramps in this shopping centre. As I said, structurally I couldn't change it. Not the most ideal factor, but it was a problem because people would slip on there. We put carpet on it, made it very easy to basically walk up and down those ramps. You know, we look at sight lines. So in this instance, we removed some planners. You know, maintaining the planners was excessive and really didn't add to the look of the shopping centre. We improved the vertical visibility from the atrium to the floors of all centres. We went with the metal balustrade because in this instance it's a mid-range shopping centre. It didn't require anything fancy, and it's also a lot cheaper to clean in terms of our cleaners. If you do a glass balustrade, your cleaners are probably cleaning it twice a day. Also, in this instance, what we'd found was the balustrade had horizontal bars. Children could actually climb up these and over. So it was a safety aspect that hadn't been picked up before. We reconfigured the bubble lifts so they were simpler. Coloured white became less of a feature and less of an obstruction in terms of the shopping centre. You know, lift lobbies are well used. In this instance, we had 13 lift lobbies because we had undercover car park, we had basement car park, we had raised car park, and it was critical that we made our lift lobbies easy for the customer to identify what floor they'd come out of. Toilets. We became obsessed on our toilets. Malaysia, they're disgusting. If our customers, we found out from our market research, was if the customer wanted to go to the toilet, they left and went home. So we actually did this well ahead of the refurbishment. But even within that, we looked at the energy saving features that we could provide. We looked at the lux level. We looked at having scents in there so it smelled nice. We made sure the drainage was right. You know, Malaysia has a problem where they have the bib tap, which is they clean with a hose, so there's always water all over the floor. So it's essential that basically got drained away. We looked at putting in our disabled toilets, you know, little elements of push button doors and also emergency buttons. Our exterior area, we took out some of the elements. Sometimes we have elements like fountains and gardens which really don't work. And in this instance, we took it out. We were able to do more casual leasing and events in the outside, which also meant that our income increased. Car parks, dark, dingy, very unsafe. We repainted the ceilings. We put in the colour epoxy floor. Straight away, the comments coming back from the customers was they felt more safe. We improved. Actually, in this instance, we were going to change the lighting throughout the car park, but because we painted the ceilings white, the ducting white, the floors, the columns, we didn't actually have to change the lighting at all, so we actually saved some money in that respect. We also, in this instance, had a 2-acre block, so we looked at the redevelopment potential, where we were able to add another 13,000 square metres of retail, and we also had 4 towers with over 200 apartments. This is an opportunity to expand the centre and get a better return out of it. We also looked at an area which was an old area which had been originally storage, which we changed into a IT centre. In this instance, the capital expenditure for it was 3.9 million, which is about 1.2 US, but we got an actual first year return of 9.2%. We measured it, was a measured result for us. So it was vacant lots, no income. We created new 2,012 square metres of space and also new usage that we needed within the mall for IT. Within that, what we looked at was we did a management overhaul. We completely changed the management in terms of the training, but with the existing people. We did a full refurbishment. We did a tenant remix. We did an asset enhancement. You know, we increased the net lettable area. The number of shops went from 153 to 60. Our occupancy, more importantly, went from 87% to 99% and stayed there. Before, there was only 2 anchor tenants in terms of a department store and supermarket, and then the IT zone became that third tenant. It has to be measurable. There had to be a return on investment. Our total refurbishment cost us 23.5 million ringgit, or 7.7 million US. But we increased our rental income by 18% during that refurbishment period as well. We ended up increasing the asset value of that shopping centre by over 30%, or US 22 million. So it was very successful in that respect. Once we've finished our works, we then go into post-market research. We go out and we ask our shoppers in terms of when are they coming into the shopping centre, what days of the week, how long do they stay there, what's the number of visitors we're getting, what's the patronage for the anchor tenants, what are the different patronages for the different levels of the shopping centre, what's the demographic and social profile. So we're looking at the before and after picture, making sure that, once again, we're hitting the customers that we want to hit. We can do mystery shopper surveys just to determine how well the retailers are doing in their business and what their attitude is to customers when they come into their shops. You know, we go back through, we look at our centre positioning study. Did we satisfy, did we improve on our strengths, did we reduce our weaknesses? You know, had the design, the tenancy mix services and facilities work through the market research and the successful development. You know, we gauge the favourable and desirable centre ambience and we test the renovation concepts. In effect, it doesn't stop. We're constantly reviewing and engaging the performance of our shopping centre. We don't want to leave it for 5 or 10 years and then start again, because we start doing the life cycle analysis where your sales start dropping, your rentals start dropping. So every day, millions of people in India are looking for ways to take boredom out of their lives and end up walking through malls. Let's make them walk through yours. I hope you enjoyed the presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. The name is Scott Harris. I'm recently part of the Images staff based in the US. Presentation is incredibly useful, and the whole process is obviously very linear, one step after another. At about 9:35, you talked about research. So
yep.
Obviously, all this is based on research. So could you revisit, if you don't mind, the process of research, why it's so important, how much time you devote to it, and also in certain markets, it's very difficult to get research, to get good data. So how do you address that where the market's not quite that transparent?
Okay. The type and the depth of the market research really depends in terms of the information that you're looking for. To do it comprehensively, you're obviously doing focus groups, exit surveys, household surveys, and looking at desk research in terms of what's available in the local marketplace. That process can take anywhere from 2 to 4 months in terms of to carry out and actually get the information back. Critically within that process is that you need to understand the information you're trying to get from that market research. And in some instances, we're working with companies that, you know, Vietnam, we worked with a fast-moving consumer goods market research company. Very good at doing that, but we had to teach them how to do and what we needed out of shopping centre research. So in that instance, you know, there was limited information that we could get out of the government. So the focus groups were extremely important to us. And what we did, which is probably a little bit iffy, was we actually did exit surveys at all our competitors. And because it was a greenfields development, we couldn't do it within our own shopping centre. So what we did was we basically did exit surveys at our competitors and got an understanding of what the customers thought of them, and then we were able to work within in terms of where our positioning would fit inside of that. And you're right, sometimes there's not the level of resources that you get. So, I mean, America's brilliant. You can just buy stuff online for pretty much any area that you're in. Places like Asia, places like India, sometimes you have to work with companies and teach them how you do it. And that's where it goes back to the point I made, where that's where you need the various experts that are good at that, because they can sit with those agencies and say, look, this is the process. these are the questions that we want. This has to be open-ended. This has to be closed-ended. This is how we extrapolate out, for instance, the one in Hanoi, to do a trade area map. We just sent someone on a motorbike, 15 minutes, in various areas, and then plotted it. The government statistics were varied, but they were able to, because of the information they had, extrapolate that. So they were able to take the information that was there and basically apply it to our trade area. And within that, that's where your own experience comes into it as well.
Hi, my name is Shibu. I'm coming from a mall in Cochin, Lulu Mall. Just want to understand, you mentioned that your Lex levels in the restrooms and around 300 to 500.
Yep.
What are the type of Lex levels to main in the common areas for customers?
Depending on what you've always got to understand with this is the type of materials you use and the colours of those materials will actually have an impact on your lux level. If you use browns and blacks, they tend to suck the life out of your shopping centre. And so therefore you have to raise the intensity. Typically in terms of the common area, similarly we're probably looking at 300 to 500. And that really depends on the positioning of the mall and the overall colours that we've got. In the mall that I showed you, because it was white, it was one of the reasons why we did the white was that our lighting plan was we added probably 30% more lighting to get the lux level that we needed because the white generated a greater lux level. So it's that balancing out when you're talking with your architects and with your M&E consultants is getting someone that actually understands the lux level. Typically we find there's some very good lighting people in the marketplace and we tend to sort of more use those because their expertise is greater. Because with a lot of the M&E, my experience not so much here but probably in Asia is that they just repeat what they've done 20 years ago, so you get nothing new. So unless your people on the ground are pushing them for what you need, you'll just get what they've done for other projects.
Thank you very much, Chris, for such an informative presentation. Well, just one question that you said, use natural light to avoid electricity, but then we need to make sure that it doesn't create much heat. I'm coming from a place where we are facing a problem that we have lots of heat. So is there any remedies to, prevent that things, the excess heat? And is there any idea you can suggest that we can use?
Sorry, just to clarify, you're saying that the electricity goes...
No. We have a mall where we have a more natural light, but we have excess of heat because of that. So is there any idea you can give which, we can use to prevent the mall from getting heat?
That's a hard question because it's very general, I think, because every project is specific in terms of what you can and can't do with them. To be honest, what I would suggest is, after I finish this, come up and have a chat and just explain your project a little bit better, and then perhaps I can give you some ideas that way. Because it's as we say, every mall is different. There's not one solution that's going to fit all. I'm quite happy to have a quick chat with you after this.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Morning, Chris.
Morning.
That was a wonderful presentation. I think very informative.
Thank you.
And extremely knowledgeable. My name is Ajay. I am a designer. I have a design studio which provides identity to malls and food courts through graphics and storytelling. My question to you is that there is a recent trend that's seen globally of creating pop-up malls, which are box container malls.
Yeah.
Would you have any data as to how successful these are?
In some respects, it's a new word, but it's not it's an old concept. We've looked at projects where just to get some money out of the adjoining land use that you can put up a simple tilt-up structure. It's very cheap. You get your money back within 2 years, and it makes sense. It really depends in terms of, for me, it's just return on investment. It's what it's going to cost me versus the time it takes me to get my money back versus what I've got the long-term plans for that land. If you talk specifically the pop-up stores within shopping centres, for me, I think we've been doing those since shopping centres opened because literally it's just being aggressive on vacant space. Typically what we look at is we've got vacant space and we just get a retailer in there to work from 2 months, 5 months or 10 months, depending on how long it's vacant. And I think it's good because it provides something different to the mall. I like them and I think it's a good concept, and then it's just a matter of, in terms of the rent you need to get out of that site, who does the work in terms of, do you need to carpet it, do you need to put the ceiling in, do you need to put the lighting in, and then how long it's actually going to be there. Does that answer your question?
It does, thanks. Okay. One more question,
yep, sure.
Just to follow up on the same thing. I have recently heard about a mall that's come up in Berlin, which is called Bikini Berlin. And what they've really done over there is they've actually created what you mentioned in your presentation as well, is they've created this concept of creating pop-up shops within the mall itself to be able to bring in some excitement to the mall. So is this something that's also happening across the world?
Yeah, it is, and it's something that, when I was talking about, kiosks and bump carts and those sort of things, that's for me, the people that did it, that started this process was Mall of America 26 years ago. And the reason they did it was they were finding that a lot of the small retailers couldn't afford the large shops, couldn't afford the fit-outs, didn't have the expertise to move straight into a shop. So what they created was virtually like a nursery. So they created these lovely little sort of kiosks and gondoliers in the common area, and they were able to bring in smaller retailers who could then get the experience of a large mall and in terms of selling the product. And then eventually, as they grew and they got bigger, some of them succeeded to larger shops, some of them sort of fell over, but the benefit you had was there was a constant movement of new retailers through the middle of your mall. Because typically, if you look in your mall in terms of your main shops, they're anywhere there from 3 to 5 years, depending on the time of your tenancy agreement. So they're fairly static, right? What you can create in your common areas is a bit of a carnival atmosphere, a bit of a change, a bit of a market atmosphere, done within, for me it's very important, like I said with the fit-out manual, that they're consistent, they look good, you don't just allow them to throw a cloth on a table and stuff goes everywhere. But I think, that example is a very good example. It's relevant in this market, it's relevant in every market. And part of your leasing plan should be the fact that your leasing people are identifying those casual leasing opportunities, those small retailers out in the market that you can bring in. For me, having done leasing for a lot of years, the Australian terminology is you walk the street, not a street walker. But walking the street just means you look for those small retailers that are unique, that are selling something that you think, okay, well, we can put those in our shopping centre and it gives it a point of difference. Stops that homogeneity of the malls.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There is one more question from my side, Chris. This side.
Okay. Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah. This is concerning the illuminations in the common area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem I'm facing is if I illuminate it well, I take attention of my retail units. So what should be the ratio of the illumination wherein the retail units should not be compromised? And also, what should be the ratio wherein there is a certain amount of light which is coming from the show windows to the common area? So when I'm planning my illumination in the common area, what should be the ideal ratio wherein I get enough light from the retail units and plan my illumination? There is one more thing which I want to know is how to take attention off the ceiling,
yep.
And it should be focused down so that the ceiling is not exposed.
Okay. Westfield at one stage did a very interesting exercise where they tried to specify from the retailers their lux level coming out of the shop, which was basically designed to reduce the amount of common area lighting that they needed to put in, which obviously saved the money. The problem they got, and the problem that you have, is that invariably they don't put it in, or it's not sufficient, and you end up with dark zones within your shopping centre. For me, I don't even consider the lux level coming out of the shop. I specify my lux level for what I want in the common area. If I get a very bright shop, like a jewellery shop, which has an intense lux level, that's a benefit. But if I get a very dark in terms of like streetwear or entertainment, then you don't want it to be so dark that it becomes a little bit of a cave. So for me, and a lot of this is subjective in terms of what people do and don't like, is that I build the lux level for what's invariably in front of that shop. As in, I do the common area, and then if I get an additional lux level out of that shop, then that's fine. Your second question, sorry? Oh, the ceiling? Architects the world over will disagree with me, but I don't put anything in my ceilings because if I've got a large void area, I may hang banners, but invariably what you find with your customers is if you make it interesting at this level, right? Because most people look straight ahead, they don't look at your ceiling. It's drawing the eye. You know, similarly why I used a lot of white in that project was the shop fronts literally do pop out. So the customer is looking at that. If they're looking at your ceiling, then you're right, you've got a problem. And normally it's just the feature which people say, look, you know, it breaks the eyesight. For me, it's just additional money, and I keep my ceilings very flat, maybe a little bit of an architrave, and I make sure the shops are interesting. That comes into your fit-out manual as well, because you want them to pop out. You know, how far do they come out? Do they have a 3D element? You know, you look at the signage, you look at in terms of how they just do the display within the shop. And so then they're not focusing on your ceiling.
And more to that, what should be the ideal lux level maintained in the common areas?
For me, I think it's anywhere between 300 to 500.
500?
Yeah, it's bright. But you can bring that down in terms of using different materials. Because it means it's consistent night or day, and the skylights will always create a problem for you because that's where it sucks a lot of the light out. So at night time, you want to make even surer that it's a bright level.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for a fantastic presentation. You have shed light to many areas which we haven't thought of. My name is Babu. I'm coming from Bahrain, where we are building our first mall. The mall is a lifestyle mall with the twin towers. The twin towers will be multi-use towers. Yep. My question is, what's an ideal width for the corridors? Mind that the entire width of the mall is only 78 meters. So what would be the ideal, the minimum corridor width? You're talking about a mall which is 78 meters wide, yep, and 125 meters long. Okay.
The easiest way to answer that question is a rectangle is always the easier because in relative terms, if you look at it, you know, let's say you've got shops that are 8 metres in depth, you've got a 4 metre walkway, you've got an 8 metre void, right? It's equidistant. The problem is 90% of the developments we do are in uneven shapes. The key that when you're getting that shape because it is so deep, your biggest problem is trying to get away from the secondary corridors, right? Because it is that depth, right? And your shop front to depth should be sort of basically 2 to 1, right? Okay. So what ends up happening, and these are the ones that are always difficult for us to do, is that you end up creating secondary corridors, but a way of reducing down that impact in terms of them being dead ends or back of the shopping centre really comes back to those walkways, right? It comes back to those sight lines. It's making sure that in those malls that it may be 8 or 16 metres wide. Because when I look at it, you know, I'm looking here and my secondary corridor is at the back. You've got to draw me through there. So you've got to have very good signage program, you've got to have very good retailers, you've got to look at your anchor tenants in terms of where they are, right? And that takes out a lot of the problems. It's always going to be hard to get retailers in there, but that's where you look at your tenancy plan and say, look, these are the retailers that have a good destinational pull, right? And that'll bring people through there. And then with the lifestyle centre, if you're doing the true open-air lifestyle, right, is similarly, people may shop different areas, right? You'll have your entertainment area, right? And if you have your cinemas, you know, it works after hours and on weekends. It's not always a good draw card during the day for your other retailers, right? You look at your department stores, you look at your supermarkets, and there's a way of doing that mix so that you reduce the impact. But because of that shape, you're always going to have bad areas. But going into that design, if you have the experience, is that you minimise the impact that has on your overall development. And you reflect that back through in terms of your rental. So you maybe reduce that rental in terms of encouraging people to go in there.
Hi Krish, my name is Ravi Shankar. I am from Central Future Group. My question is refurbishing or renovation is mandatory for a lifestyle store within a span of time? Or for example, we have certain malls, 10-year-old, seamless malls, which is 10-year-old. So like you said, we are, you know, turnover is decreasing, all these problems we are facing. Based on your experience, can you please suggest for any seamless malls or any lifestyle malls, is it mandatory to refurbish the entire facade or interiors within 7 years? Is there any time frame is there for that?
No, look, every mall's different, and to be honest, can you fix every mall? No. And sometimes that's where you look at the fact that you demolish it and you start again. For existing malls, The reason why for me is it is very process orientated. We go through that process because we look at the strengths, we look at the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, we look at what the limitations we have within that building. That starts as a blueprint in terms of what you can and can't do. When it's an existing mall, you know, that mall can still be earning you income. You know, for instance, the mall that I mentioned there, it's 88%. We were still earning, you know, $40 or $50 million a year. So we didn't want to lose that income. If you close down that mall, those retailers leave, and you're basically not getting any income in. So we had to design a strategy which was probably new to Malaysia and a lot of parts of Asia, where we did all the works after hours, so the retailers could basically continue their trade. You know, we pulled up floors, but we did it in such a way, and I've got to admit that this is where you go around and you look at other malls. I was in the Queens Centre in America, in New York, and one of the centre managers there had come up with a novel concept where, because they were also doing it during the night time, they only took out as much tile they could lay in a night. So for instance, they would demolish 8 metres, put down a board, they could then lay 8 metres, and then they could polish 8 metres. So invariably at any one time in that mall, the only floor that was damaged was 8 metres, which had a plyboard or carpet on top of it. And so the inconvenience to the customer was very little. And they're the issues that you just look at. And there's probably, you know, 500 or 600 issues per mall in terms of what you do. But that's where you balance it up and you just say, look, if I can keep operating and I can keep getting my income, then I will continue to do the works. But if you've got structural problems, it just doesn't work, you want to take out a whole heap of secondary corridors, you're basically better off starting with a blank floor plan, then in that case that's where you want to look at and say, look, it's easier for me to come in, demolish it all at once, do the works 24 hours a day, and then just reposition them all that way. And that can be a positive sometimes as well, because you could have a dog mall, right? One that's really struggling, it's got a bad name to it, you close it down, when you reopen it, it's a new product. You don't associate anything with the older mall. But as I said, it's you know, every mall's different, so it's a matter of really looking at that information, and for me that's why it's going through a very clear process, because I think too, from your point of view in terms of spending the money, you want to look at, this is what I'm spending, this is what the return I'm getting out of it, and does it work? You know, we're doing one mall at the moment where no matter how much I play with the leasing numbers in terms of the rental, I can't get them a really good return. But the only problem they've got with that mall, if they don't spend the money, the mall's just going to become 100% vacant, in which case it's worth nothing to them. So in that instance, you know, with refurbishments, a lot of the time is you don't necessarily get a return on investment, but what it does is it takes you out of that lifestyle where you're decreasing and you're going down, and it brings you so you start going up. So within 2 or 3 years after that, you're increasing the rentals, you're getting a better return. So sometimes it's just having a bit of a more long-term outlook in terms of saying, look, it's 5 to 10 years on.
Okay. Another question is, what would be the ideal ratio for leasable retail area and common service area for a successful property?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What would be the ideal ratio for retail, leasable retail area and common service area in a successful properties?
Yeah, look, for me, it's got to be 60 to 65% of your gross floor area. The reason why I say that there's a lot of science to this business, right? I mean, shopping centres have been around for a long time, and that's one of the key measurements for me which I adhere to when I'm looking at developments. Simple reason is that I've seen malls that are looking at 85, 90%, right? They have very narrow secondary corridors, and what we see is we see a decreasing rental because you have a lot of bad space or you have a lot of big space, right? It's like saying that realistically your department store in terms of your major tenancies should be around 40 to 50% of your space, because you get less rental out of them, so you've got to make it up out of the specialty rent. So for me, if you're sitting between 60 to 65% in terms of efficiency, that's a good place to be. If you get below that, the problem is then that you're also getting less rent, right? And if you're doing a large shopping centre and it's got large department stores or entertainment anchors, and they're paying, you know, a fraction of what you get out of your smaller tenancies, it's very hard to basically then balance that development. And that's why you do the planning ahead of time. You go into it and you say, look, if we change it up, you can phase it, right? So you don't build it all at once. You build in terms of what the market can cater for now. And then you have another options to look at.